Been with us, and early on in a book, I try to do a little bit of review and catch up so that nobody feels left behind. As we get deeper into the book, of course, you're just going to have to catch up on your own. But Numbers is a book of patterns. And God is a God of order. Amen? Everything has its place, and everything fits neatly in its place. And one of the biggest lessons about the book of Numbers is the mobilization of 2 million people and the mobilization of 600,000 people, 600,000 men assigned to do work. Imagine the chaos if everybody went and did their own thing. Imagine the chaos in a congregation this size if everybody went and did their own thing. We actually had this happen recently. Somebody took on an assignment that wasn't theirs. It was a simple thing, a very simple thing. The most minor of things, something you would think that anybody could do, but it wasn't their job. And because they didn't exactly know what they were doing, they knew how to handle this small task. They knew how to handle it at home, and they knew how to handle it in other parts, but when they came to something very specific, what they did was they did about $750 worth of damage. Over a $5 job. $750 worth of damage because they didn't know what they were doing. They were where they should not have been, trying to help out. Well, imagine in this tabernacle, imagine this division of 12 tribes surrounding the tabernacle, and then inside, around the tabernacle, the Levites and the Levitical responsibility, you're responsible for the covering, and you're responsible for the rings, and you're responsible for the poles, and you're responsible for the movement, you're responsible for the loading and the unloading. What if I start to do your job? And God's economy, not good. Why do we study the gifts? Because if your gift is prophecy, bring the word. Don't go in the office to be the administrator. Not your job, not your gifting, not your calling, not your place. Now, does that mean that you can't do it? Of course you can do it. We want to support everybody, but you're going to find fulfillment. You're going to find completeness in God's economy in doing the job that God called you to do your assigned part. Guess what? You rob that person of a blessing. I took it on myself to do this. Well, guess what? You're a thief. You rob that person of the blessing. That was their job. Now it's done. What are they going to do? Where do they find fulfillment? Now they feel persecuted. You must think I can't do the job adequately. You can do the job better. Well, you don't need me anymore. I'll go find somewhere else where I'm needed. We don't ever think about that. I just wanted to help. But that wasn't your job. How many of you work in a company where your assigned job is this? Well, if you're doing everybody else's job, guess what job's not getting done? Your job's not getting done. But I like that job and I can do that job better. Well, guess what? Not only do you get in trouble, but you've hurt somebody else. And in God's economy, how do people get hurt? I remember years ago I was listening to Russell and Roxanne the other morning. They were talking about situations how you messed up on your own. I backed my car into my own motorhome. Because for years the motorhome was parked in a certain place, but somebody borrowed it and they put it somewhere where it didn't belong. They thought they were going to do me a favor. I said to them, leave it here and I'll park it, but they did me a favor. Well, I forgot all about it and I pulled out of the driveway. I pulled back out of not thinking about it. Everything's the way it is. We have it, and bam! I wrecked the motorhome and wrecked my car. They were doing me a favor. I'll take care of that. I know how to park it. I'll do you a favor. Well, guess what? $6,000 worth of damage. That's a big favor, isn't it? But we don't think past the moment. And this is why God gives us in the book of Numbers, He gives us order. He gives us assigned responsibilities. And guess what? If you don't do your job, there's accountability for that. In a congregation, who is responsible for this? Look around you. There are people who are responsible for every single part of the operation of the congregation. Every part. Look in your pew. Is there a pen? Is there a pencil? Is there an offering envelope? People have that assigned responsibility that after services they go back and restock. Somebody has the responsibility of keeping the inventory of the supplies so that if they draw the supplies down, we can reorder. So we're not caught short where we have, guess what? Did you get a visitor package? You did. And in that visitor package was a card and a name tag and a brochure, a visitor card and a pen. People have to assemble that. Somebody has to be responsible for making sure that inventory is kept up. Well, somebody has to order from the printer, and they have to order this, and they have to order that, and all these different parts of it have to be coordinated. Well, what if it was just, well, I don't feel like doing that, or that's not my area, or that's my area, but I took it up. And so when we take a look at the order of the book of Numbers, we serve a God of order. Why? Because imagine what it would be like. Oh man, the cloud's moving. And everybody runs into each other and nothing gets done. Is that a sign of holiness? How many of you have been in congregations where there's chaos? Throughout the whole service, there's banging, clanging, things falling, people making all kinds of noise, things moving around. It's distraction. The enemy loves distraction. Remember, the number one tactic of the enemy is distraction. It's not disaster. All he has to do is take your eyes off the Lord, and he wins. It's a simple tactic of distraction. So when I'm doing your job, and now people have to focus on it, how much effort does it take to fix, in this particular case, in this $5 problem, I'm going to have to spend several hours on the front to coordinate the activities of a professional, and the bringing of scaffolding in, and the coordinating of the time, and the cleanup, and the carpet cleaning after the scaffolding comes in. And then the payment, all over something that would have taken 5 minutes to do, had it been done by the people who were responsible for it. But because somebody said, oh, I'll take care of that, I'll do that, without any regard for the consequence. Well, God says, in His form of order, there is no consequence if we do what we're supposed to do. Be where you're supposed to be. You mean all I have to do, Rabbi, is show up and God will do the rest? Yep. If that's your job, is to show up. Well, I need a touch from the Lord. I need a word from the Lord. Then show up where the word of the Lord is going to come, and you'll receive everything God has for you, but you still have to show up. That's all you have to do. You don't have to preach the sermon. You don't have to prepare the notes. You don't have to prepare the teaching. You don't have to go get a degree. You don't have to go do this. You don't have to go. All you have to do is show up. If that's your assignment for that day, just show up. Now, what's going to happen when that comes? Well, you're going to have a flat tire, or the pilot light went out on the water heater, or, the car wouldn't start, or, the kid doesn't want to go, or all these things to keep you from your assignment. Sometimes your assignment is simply show up. That's it. Show up. God will do the rest. Reach this far, God comes all the rest of the way. You can't reach any further than can you? But He's not going to pull your hand out of your pocket. We just talked about this in our discipleship class. He's not going to, if your hand's in your pocket, He's not going to pull your hand out of your pocket so you can reach up to Him. You got to do something. You got to do the minimal, whatever He asks you to do. Sometimes it's monumental. Leave your mother and father. Leave your sister and brother. Leave your children. Leave your home. Leave everything you know and come to the place I will send you. But the book of Numbers is about order. People say to me, well, the book of Numbers, it's so dry. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you consider yourself counted by God? Do you consider the fact that God has numbered the hairs on your head? Makes you pretty special, doesn't it? So counting is pretty important. Do you count on the Lord to be involved in the things you ask Him to be involved in? Counting's pretty important. If we don't understand the concept of counting, how do we understand the tithe? How do we understand first fruits? And guess what? When he talks about the redeemed of Israel, when he talks about his firstborn, and he talks about the Levites as his firstborn, we understand the redemption of the firstborn, how he saved the firstborn from Egypt, how he reserved the firstborn for himself, why Yeshua was being taken into Jerusalem, and why they were bringing 2 doves or 2 pigeons to redeem for the firstborn. We see this pattern all the way through. It's important. Obedience better than sacrifice. He's the God of order. And right there in the center of this order is God. The whole community was built around God. God was the center of their life, and when God moved, they moved. Kind of dispels the myth about the wandering Jews, how they aimlessly wandered through the desert. There's no record of them aimlessly wandering anywhere. The record clearly shows that when the cloud moved, they moved. And when the cloud stopped, they stopped and encamped. And so the book of Numbers is clearly about each one of these camps. It's not about the journey. The journey was difficult. How long did it take to pack all this stuff up? How long did it take to do all this? That wasn't the important part. The important part was the full execution and the order which God has that each person was assigned so that we can find our place in the kingdom and be fulfilled and fruitful and make a difference. Because guess what? The person who was supposed to feed the horses when it was time to move, if the horses were dead, they weren't going to be able to move, would they? There were people responsible for cleanup. There were people responsible for the badger skins. There were people responsible for the purple thread, for the blue thread, for the red. It was all a part of God's economy that everybody would have a role. Everybody would have a job. If you had the ability to bear arms, this was what you did, and this was your position, and this is how you did it, and where you went. And he was very specific. And if everybody was left to their own devices, it would be chaos. Chaos. This was not management by a committee. This was a theocracy, and God was in charge, and people followed. You have to think of the magnitude of this operation. 2 million people, twice the size of Birmingham, 600 and some odd thousand, I forget the number, 680,000 men assigned to these positions. And then we're going to count the Levites, because we understand that surrounding the tabernacle itself, each one of the piece parts of the tabernacle had somebody who was responsible for the movement of it, for the setup, for the tear down, for the maintenance of it, for the upkeep of it, for the care of it. And God had this significant order to it that was so profound that it operated that way for 40 years. How many of us have participated in a company that didn't have 40 years of smooth operation, because not everybody did? This was 40 years of fairly smooth operation. We don't read any record of the great disaster of 08 when they dropped the tabernacle, did we? No, we know the mishandling of the tabernacle cost lives. Okay? The people who weren't responsible for moving it moved it. Okay, we see that later on in the time of King David, but in this story in the book of Numbers, we're seeing a picture of order. Every one of the names of the people involved in this has meaning, and we spent the first 2 weeks talking about the meaning of the names, but the most significant part of the names is there were 12 tribes. 11 of those tribes had a leader whose name meant things like peace of God, and God is my rock, and all these wonderful things, and the 12th, his name meant son of evil, or brother of evil, brother of evil. And so we see the portrayal of Judas Iscariot right there as the brother of evil, right there in the tabernacle. How profound is that these disciples, the 12 that were established as followers of Yeshua, that were not only disciples but apostles as well, that one of them would betray him, and here we have that pattern established in the book of Numbers, that the 12th on the team was the brother of evil. We see in here the tabernacle being the center of life. We see in here the perfect picture of God using a prophet, a major prophet. We see Balaam, we see Balak, we see the donkey, We see a powerful picture taking place in the book of Numbers. Yet it's a very dull, ordinary book of the Bible. So here we are in chapter 3. This is the line of Aaron and Moses at the time the Lord spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. These were the names of Aaron's sons: Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Those were the names of Aaron's sons, the anointed priests who were ordained for priesthood. But Nadab and Abihu died by the will of the Lord when they offered alien fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they left no sons. So it was Eleazar and Ithamar who served as priests in the lifetime of their father Aaron. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Advance the tribe of Levi and place them in attendance upon Aaron the priest to serve him." So we know this order is that the priest is to be served in a particular way. Does that mean that they're subservient to them, that he's better than them? No, there's a job to do. And if we're not taking care of those who are in a position of leadership, if we're not girding them up, if we're not lifting them up, if we're not providing for them, what are we doing? We're cutting off the hand that feeds us. I hear a lot of silliness in the world and the community about people coming against their pastors and their rabbis. And certainly if it's for biblical reasons, they're entitled. But if it's because we stepped on your shoe shine, oh well. The Word of God should go forth, and if the Word of God convicts you, not condemns you, but convicts you, every one of you should say, "Boy, the rabbi really read my mail. That sermon was all about me." Okay, it should be all about you. If I'm listening to the Lord, it should be about every one of you. It should be what you're hungry for. He should be telling me things about you, about the needs of the congregation. That's what you should be fed and say, "Wow, that really hit a great spot with me. I was hungry for that word. I came away refreshed. I came away not hungry anymore for more of that." It should be a smorgasbord. You should get prophecy. You should get infilling. You should get healing. You should get deliverance. You should get a message. You should get a study. You should get all that in God's house. You should walk away refreshed and fulfilled. Nutrition. That whole food pyramid you should get in the Word of God. They should perform duties for him and for the whole community before the tent of meeting during the work of the tabernacle. Perform duties for him and for the whole community. Are they one and the same? Yes. I'm a sum total of the body, of this body. What you do for me, you do for the entire congregation. It's the way it's supposed to be. Those who are in positions where they support the congregation, support me in different ways, whether or not through prayer or provision or for accommodation or whatever it is, provide that for you. Because if I walk in here dragging because I had to do this and I had to do that and I had to do this and do that, I didn't have time to prepare because I was too busy doing these other things, and I didn't have time to get ready because I was too busy doing this, and I didn't have time to go get a haircut, and don't make a comment now because I missed my appointment yesterday. And see, they're calling me now to remind me. They're all over me. But the point is that it's for your benefit when people do those things. Because you get the benefit of a refreshed rabbi and a refreshed rebbitzin and the things that go into supporting you. If it's done for me, it's done for you. You and I are one. The body operates as one in the way it should be. And God set this up. They shall perform duties for him and for the whole community before the tent of meeting, doing the work of the tabernacle. Where are you sitting now? In the tabernacle. And if you don't see it, if you don't see the shape of the building, most churches, most synagogues are built in the pattern and the form of the tabernacle. If you don't see the outer court, if you don't see a holy of holies, if you don't see all of the different elements coming together, see, isn't it interesting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 6 makes 12. Count the number of panels back here behind me. 6 on this side, 6 on that side. How interesting. Accident? John Furman, accident? Yes. We had no idea when we designed it how the panels were going to, Phil had no idea. All right, and all of a sudden he walked in and said, "Well, I got 6 panels to the right and 6 panels to the left." Well, that would be God. That would be God. All right, we had no idea when we measured this out that it was going to be 6 equal panels on each side. But here was the pattern in the Bible. All right? A beautiful picture of the tabernacle, and God reinforcing and confirming through things like this that this is His tabernacle. This is His dwelling place. You shall assign the Levites to Aaron and to his sons. They are formally assigned to him from among the Israelites. You shall make Aaron and his sons responsible for observing their priestly duties, and any outsider who encroaches shall be put to death. So here we have a death sentence if you get too close to the tabernacle, right? Okay. What would you consider the tabernacle to be? Would you consider that to be anointed of God? I would. So then you have this, anybody who encroaches shall be put to death. And then you read what? You read the statement, don't touch God's anointed. Don't come against God's anointed. He's setting up this pattern right here in the tabernacle. He showed us that you bring strange fire before the Lord. You get too close. He told the Levites to encamp around, but not too close. Not too close. And then if anybody encroaches upon you, they'll be put to death. Not too close. If you touch God's anointed, there's a consequence. People don't mind having fried rabbi for lunch on Saturday. Don't mind having fried pastor for lunch on Sunday. Let me assure you, don't come against God's anointed. Not nice. Not good. Not good according to God's Word. If you have an issue with your pastor, you have an issue with me, Matthew 18 tells you exactly how to handle it. You come see me in private. Otherwise, you're planting seeds of discord. You are coming against the body. Not biblical. Not biblical. Gossip, slander, backstabbing, not biblical. You have a grievance and an offense, and don't take on somebody else's offense. Oh, I didn't like the way you talked to so-and-so. Oh, I overheard you and I didn't like what you said or your tone of voice. Don't take on other people's offenses. Not biblical. It's not biblical. And so when God established all this, He's sending us messages. He sends us signals all throughout His Word. All throughout His Word. Don't touch God's anointed. Now, does that mean I'm immune? No. You release me into the hands of the Lord, let me tell you something, I get slapped around pretty good. Why does He say, bless those who curse you and pray for those who despitefully use you? Feed your enemies. It's like heaping hot coals on their head because the Lord's involved in it. He's the one that will mete out justice. He's the one. And if you truly love me, you'll release me into His hands. Let Him deal with me. And then what? Guess what? Your hands are clean. Your hands are clean. If it's biblical, you bring it into me, and many of you have, and said, hey, this is what I read here, and I'll say to you, yes, read that, but then read this, and you go, oh, well, I didn't see that. Say, okay. Or, if I'm mistaken, I'll correct it right here. Biblical. Biblical. But you don't like the tone of the sermon? Not biblical. Well, I didn't like your sermon last night. Well, I didn't like your tie. Okay? And now we're just arguing over opinion. Okay? But let the Word of God reign. Let the Word of God rule. Let's put the Lord right in the center of our life. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I hereby take the Levites from among the Israelites. In place of all the firstborn, the first issue of the womb, among the Israelites, the Levites shall be mine. Again, in the pattern of the redemption of the firstborn. What is He saying? He's saying, Israel and the Levites are my firstborn. Why is that important? Abraham, take your son, your only son Isaac. For God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son. We begin to see the power and the authority and the selection process of God choosing for Himself the firstborn, anointed of God. We know that Pharaoh and all of Egypt lost what? The firstborn in their home, the firstborn of their flock, the firstborn of their herd. Why? Because look, oh, I love my kids all equally. The firstborn son that carries your name, do you think you love him just a little bit? Okay, let's be real. Okay? So you have the expectation of that firstborn of being. You don't have any promise for a secondborn or a thirdborn. What do? We transfer our hope into the firstborn. It's automatic. Oh, but I'm very fair with all my children. Yeah, okay, you are very fair with all your children, but that firstborn, you will never have any other firstborn than the firstborn. It's natural. God understands that natural selection process, but when we understand the power that goes along with that firstborn. Now, was the firstborn always the inheritor? No. Isaac wasn't the firstborn, but he was the only, according to God. Jacob and Esau. Okay, many patterns of this in Genesis that we see. All right, but that father still has those feelings. For every firstborn is mine at the time that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt. I consecrated every firstborn in Israel, man and beast, to myself to be mine, the Lord's. The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, record the Levites by ancestral house and by clan. Record every male among them from the age of 1 month up. Why? Has to be an offsetting redemption. Do we have enough to be able to redeem all of them? How many are there? Do we have enough to redeem all of them? If we don't have enough to redeem all of them, then what do we have to do? We've got to pay. We've got to come up with some cash. Okay? There was a value to it. There was a 5 shekel that you could do it to exchange for it if you didn't have the cattle. But you have to count it. All right? If I take 55,000 people, I have to come up with 55,000 somethings. All right, in order to redeem them, to make that offering, whether or not it's 2 birds, 2 doves, 2 pigeons, 2 doves, or 5 shekels. So Moses recorded them at the command of the Lord as he was bidden. These were the sons of Levi by name, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. These were the names of the sons of Gershon by clan, Libni and Shimei. The sons of Kohath by clan, Amram and Izhar, Hebron and Uzziel. The sons of Merari by clan, Mali and Mushi. These were the clans of the Levites within their ancestral houses. To Gershon belonged the clan of the Libnites and the clan of the Shimeites. Those were the clans of the Gershonites. The recorded entries of all their males from the age of 1 month up as recorded came to 7,500. The clans of the Gershonites were to camp behind the tabernacle to the west. The chieftain of the ancestral house of the Gershonites was Eliasaph, son of Lael. The duties of the Gershonites on the tent of meeting comprised the tabernacle, the tent, its coverings, and the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting. The hangings of the enclosure, the screen for the entrance of the enclosure, which surrounds the tabernacle, the cords thereof, and the altar, all the service connected with these. This was their job, not yours. So it was expected that in the execution of those duties, that no one encroached on their duties. It's a very important lesson. Yes, we want everybody. It says, many hands make for light work, but if you're not on this team and you're on that team, certainly if your work is done and you say, is there anything I can do to help you? Great. Right attitude, servant's attitude. But if you walk over there and you start doing what somebody else's responsibility is, you steal their blessing. How would you feel if I did your job? And so we don't think that way. We think we're helping. But God has an order. Does that mean that you want to sit back and see something needs to be done and you just cross your arms and say, not my job? No, you speak up and you offer. You ask those who have that responsibility, can I lend a hand? Difference between lending a hand and doing it for them. And so in this case, God has this order, and He set it up with boundaries. How many of you know that boundaries make for good relationships? No is an answer. Matter of fact, in the 613 Levitical commands, 365 of them are no. What else is there 365 of? That you might be prepared to hear no every day of your life. No is an answer in God's economy. And He's telling the people, yes, this is your job, but no, these are not your jobs. Assignment, assignment, assignment. Why? Many of you have been military. Go into battle, and you expect these people to be where they're supposed to be at this particular time because you're supposed to execute there. You play sports. Where does the quarterback throw the ball? Does he throw it to me? No, he throws it to where he expects me to be. All right? He always leads. Well, isn't that the way it's supposed to be in God's economy? God can trust you to be where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to do so that He can do what He has to do. Don't we ask for divine appointments? Well, if we get a divine appointment, are you going to show up late? What's a divine appointment? Any assignment you have in God's economy is a divine appointment. It's a divine assignment. And if He's assigned you to do it, He expects you to be there, and He's going to go ahead and throw the ball to where you're supposed to be. And guess what? If you're not there, what's going to happen? High probability of interception means somebody else can get your blessing. And if it happens again, guess what? He's going to throw the ball to somebody else because He can't count on you. Be faithful with the little things, and God will make you master over much. What's the little things? Doing the job you're given. What if I give you a job and you drop the ball? I'll help you pick it up. But if you keep dropping the ball, shame on me if I keep giving you that job. If every time you're given that same task you fail, then I've misidentified your gift. Actually, it's shame on me. Not on you. I put you in a position you cannot succeed in. We'll move you around. It's a book called Good to Great. In the corporate world, it's taking a look at the people you have and decided this is your company and it's a bus. This is our congregation, it's like a bus. You have everybody on the bus. You got 40 seats, you got 40 people. But are they in the right seat on the bus? Do I have people, you get on an airplane and they always say to you, if you're not able to sit in an exit seat, you need to move. Because you're the wrong person. You're the right person on the plane. This is the right flight to Orlando, but you're just in the wrong seat. Imagine if I had no musical ability if I was sitting in Diane's spot. But I really want to do that. In my mind, I'm a concert pianist. And I'm really, really good. I mean, really good. Okay? And I see millions of people praising the Lord, and I'm like the Yanni of praise and worship. Okay? But you know what? I couldn't find middle C if it had a big C on it. Because in my mind, I'd say, well, shouldn't it be over there? Okay? Laura, why is it over there? Shouldn't it be, right? Am I right? Okay? I'd be arguing with the piano, wouldn't I? Right? Amen. There you go. You want to hear an amen, just listen. She'll give you an amen over that one. But the truth of the matter is, I don't have that ability. Do I have a desire for that ability? I have the desire, but I don't have the desire to do the work. I want it instantaneous. So if I can't get it instantaneous, then I don't want to do it. So imagine we have this desire, I'd like to be mechanical. I helped Jim out the other day and put in crooked screws, didn't I, Jim? Okay, he'll go back and fix them. Okay? Point of the matter is, we need to do the jobs that we're assigned to, and we need to do them for the benefit and the pleasure of the Lord. With excellence. All of you know the story. When I came to the Lord, my assignment at Bethel in Atlanta was trash cans. Every time there was an event, I was told, you work the event. When a trash can is half full, I want it emptied. And you make sure that there's a trash can strategically located for the facility so people don't have to walk carrying full plates of stuff and spill, because we spend more time cleaning up spills than it takes to deploy trash cans. So that's your job. And that was my job. That was my job until my rabbi retired. And when my rabbi retired, guess what I was? I was the rabbi here in Birmingham. But when I went back to Atlanta, we went to his retirement party. Guess what I did? I hadn't been relieved yet. I got up, I gave a presentation, I spoke at his retirement, and then I got down and I went over and I changed some trash can liners because the trash cans were half full. And they said, you're the rabbi in Birmingham, you don't have to do that. I said, nobody's relieved me of my job. They didn't tell me. As long as I'm here, that's my job. And they laughed and they said, ha, but you know what? I took it seriously. I hadn't been relieved. That was the assignment given to me. And so when we would get there for events, What would we do, Laura? We'd go out and I'd count and make sure the trash cans, and I'd say to somebody, hey, there's only 14 trash cans, there's supposed to be 16. Where are the other 2 trash cans? Oh, we use those. Well, you got to go dump them out and bring them in here because this is for an event. It says right on there, MJCC, Messianic Jewish Community Center. Do not use for other things. We want it there. We want it there. Okay? Where are the liners? Oh, we need more liners. We need this. We need this. We knew where the dumpster was. We'd move it to the back door. We'd have kids take them out to the dumpster. It was very systematic, and it was that way. Why? Because to the rabbi, walking through there and seeing trash cans filled bothered him. It was a sign of uncleanness. It was a sign of out of order. It was something that was distracting. He felt that it wasn't a good witness. It wasn't a good testimony. And therefore, it was important to him. Oh, what was the job? You shall assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons, therefore may assigned to him from among the, you shall make him responsible, and he's to perform duties for him. And, oh, by the way, for the whole community. So my job for him was the trash cans, and it gave him peace. And now he would come into an event, and rather than have to say, as he did for many years, we need a trash can there, we need a trash can there, we need a trash can there, he could go bother somebody else. Right, Rocky? There you go. Rocky says, I think I figured it out. If I have all the brochures, if I have all this stuff, I have all this stuff, and he asks me if it's done and it's done, he's going to go ask somebody else. He's going to stop asking me, right? Isn't that the way to favor? Amen. All right, I come from good training. But this is how it is in God's economy. We think it's trivial, we think it's insignificant, but guess what? You may think that the temperature, or the lighting, or the this, or the that, or the machine making, or this or that, but if it's distracting to somebody, if it takes their eyes off the Lord, then it's distracting to me. Now, we may realize that how important it is that people have the opportunity to come into the house of the Lord and find peace. The world's chaotic. And when you walk in these doors, you want a pleasing aroma. Any ever smell this place on Friday? Okay? We're very deliberate about what the place smells like. We got good training. We had to Febreze the upper room at the Cathedral of the Cross for so long that we decided that it's important that there be a pleasing aroma in the place. And so we prepare it. We anoint the sanctuary with oil. We burn frankincense and myrrh candles in here for 4 or 5 hours before services to prepare. So when you walk in, it's like, oh, I just feel this. Yeah, you do. It's very deliberate. It's very intentional. But God's very intentional, isn't He? And He gives us this pattern in the book of Numbers. If we want to know about what decency and order is, all the way back here about the prophets and about prophecy and all these gifts and how they're supposed to operate, we need to see God's order and execution right here in the book of Numbers. Oh, but that just seems so, how important is it? Because the very foundation. Don't you remember Yeshua said these words? He said, it has to be this way in order for everything to be fulfilled. I have to die like this. They have to do these things. This is as it should be. Because in this order, everything must have had happened. And didn't He say in Matthew 5:17, I didn't come to change all this, I didn't come to abolish it, until everything that must happen has happened. There's an order to things, and this is God's order. These are the signs that we're looking at in order to know what's going to come. Guess what? For the 2,000 years, for the 16 or 17, 1800, 19, whatever it was, 1900 years before Messianic Judaism's rebirth from the first century, all the hope and all the promise of Jesus coming back wasn't going to happen because the Jewish people weren't in place where they needed to be, believing to call upon His name. So all the books written about the coming of Messiah was going to be in 1814, it was going to be in 1826, it was going to be in 1902, it was going to be in 1918, oh, the great 1981, 1982, 1977, 1946, all these things wasn't going to happen because the signs weren't there. Order had not been established. Therefore, what we're seeing today is things falling into place. Oh yeah, all the puzzle pieces were there, but they weren't connected. Now we're starting to connect the pieces. Now we're connecting the pieces. Now we're seeing this beautiful puzzle picture of everything coming together. All the pieces are still laying there. Now we're putting the pieces, oh, this goes there, because the edge is now formed. How many of you do puzzles? Jigsaw puzzles. What do you do first? How many of you do the middle first? Nobody does the middle first, do they? They always do the edge. Easier to find those pieces, isn't it? So we had the framework established. Wouldn't that be called an order? Don't you do a puzzle in order? Okay, I do the outside first. Then what do? Do you sort by colors? Okay, lots of people sort by colors, don't they? All right, and then they go look on the box. How many of you do it without the box? How many of you never know? How many of you get the box, throw the box, dump it on the table, never look at the box and throw it away, and are always living in wonder, or wonder what it's going to be? That's how most people approach the Bible. The truth of the matter is, look at the box, because every single word points to Messiah. This perfect picture of Messiah. So you have this order. He said to record them, and to Gershon, here's what they were supposed to do. They were responsible for the tent, the entrance, the screen, the tent, its coverings, the hangings, the screen for the entrance, the cords, and the altar, all the service connected with it. To Kohath belonged the clan of the Amramites, the clan of the Izharites, the clan of the Hebronites, and the clan of the Uzzielites. Those were the clans of Kohath, of the Kohathites. All the listed males from the age of 1 month up came to 8,600. Now all of a sudden now we're at a number of 16,100. It's a lot of people, isn't it? Think of the magnitude of this, and this is just 2 of the camps surrounding the tabernacle. Imagine all this work. This is like bees in a hive, working. All the listed males from the age of 1 month up came to 8,600, attending to the duties of the sanctuary. And the clans of the Kohathites were to camp along the south side of the tabernacle. The chieftain of the ancestral house of the Kohathite clan was Elizaphan, son of Uzziel. Their duties comprised the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, and the sacred utensils that you use with them, and the screen, all the service connected with these. The head chieftain of the Levites was Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, in charge of those attending to the duties of the sanctuary. To Merari belonged the clans of the Malites and the clan of the Mushites. Those were the clans of Merari. The recorded entries of all their males from the age of 1 month up came to 6,200. The chieftain of the ancestral house of the clans of Merari was Zuriel, son of Abihail. They were to camp along the north side of the tabernacle. The assigned duties of the Merarites comprised the planks of the tabernacle, its bars, posts, and sockets, and all its furnishings, all the service connected with these, also the posts around the enclosure and their sockets, pegs, and cords. Doesn't sound too glamorous, does it? Pegs and cords. And you ever go on a camping trip and go to put up the tent and you have no pegs? You have no cords, you have no tent. Seems pretty important, doesn't it, when you're out there in the wilderness and it's starting to rain, you got nowhere to sleep. All right? All these little things. How many of you have ever tried to put something together and find out that there's a part missing? How about that jigsaw puzzle? Okay, with that one piece missing. Okay, you get to the end of it and there's a piece missing. How does it make you feel? You put all this labor into it and something's missing. Not good. Not good.
What is the screen?
Good question.
Was it the wall of the inner court?
Screen like a covering. I mean, it's a fixture. Okay, you have to go behind. The Lord said to Moses, let's see, those who were to camp before the tabernacle in front, before the tent of meeting on the east, were Moses and Aaron and his sons, attending to the duties of the sanctuary, as a duty on behalf of the Israelites, and any outsider who encroached was put to death. Pretty serious. Pretty serious. We got a hand up here. Quickly, please. We got a hand. Okay, Sarah. Wait 1 second, get the microphone, no dead spots on the tape. Right here.
Thank you. An outsider was considered to be someone that was not a Jew, or was it those who, like from the east or the west, came to touch the things on the east?
If you weren't a Levite, you were an outsider. When it came to the proximity around the tabernacle, around the sanctuary, and around those areas, you were not to go near. It's just that simple. And even the Levites themselves were instructed to camp around the tabernacle, but not too close. Okay, another hand back there. Chelsea.
My question is, we've already had a counting of the males in chapter 1 or whatever, and now we're having a different counting.
Correct.
So are these 1 month to 20 years old?
Remember, well, no, what these are is all over 1 month. Remember, they were not counted. Levites were not counted. They only counted those who had an inheritance. All right? The males that were 20 years old and over who had the ability to bear arms were counted in the first count. Right? Now we're counting the Levites who had no inheritance in the Promised Land. They were responsible for the construction and the maintenance and the movement of the tabernacle itself. The three tribes camped in the east, 3 camps in the west, 3 camps in the south and north. All the 12 tribes surrounding the tabernacle on the outer edge at the east gate. You had the first 3 was the largest number. They were prepared for battle. And those were the battle lines being drawn. You had 6 tribes to go before the Levites in the tabernacle, 6 tribes behind them as the cloud moved. And so those 12 tribes were counted, right, because they were going to receive an inheritance. And those are the 12 that we see over and over again. But the Levites had no inheritance. They were responsible and they were supported by the tithe. They were supported, like myself, by the congregation, or like any pastor or priest, supported by the congregation for the provision, for the food, for the shelter, for all provisions for them, but they had no inheritance. They owned nothing.
So these descendants, like we're seeing from Levi and how it trickles down. So when it gives like a name and it gives how many from like Merari,
correct. This is right.
That's
that is
how it
correct.
Trickles down.
Right. These are the Levites.
Okay.
So this census is of the Levites, and this census is being counted because remember he considered the Levites to be the firstborn. All right. These were the priesthood, so these were set apart. So we have to count all them in order to have them redeemed. Okay. There has to be a redemption for the firstborn. Okay, God claims the firstborn for his own. A price is associated with each one of them. We remember that Yeshua, Joseph and Miriam made pilgrimage to Jerusalem to go bring to the temple either 2 pigeons or 2 doves, right? Correct? Okay? As the redemption for the firstborn, because the firstborn belonged to the Lord. So if it belonged to the Lord, if you didn't redeem it, what happened? It would die. God would take it for himself. So you had to redeem it. You had to pay a price to say, look, this belongs to you, but I need to redeem it. All right? Isn't that interesting? All of us have been redeemed by what? The blood of Messiah. There had to be redemption. How do we become the royal priesthood? We have to become the firstborn. Well, I wasn't the firstborn. I was the middle child. All right? I'm the firstborn of God. Each one of us becomes the firstborn of God. You're called into this. Prior to this, it was by bloodline. Now it is by bloodline his. All right? And so we have to see this perfect picture being established right here in this Levitical line that's being established and these responsibilities for the priesthood. So we have a different census because now we have to make sure that we have enough to be able to redeem the firstborn. So we have to count them. And any outsider who encroached was put to death. All the Levites who were recorded, whom at the Lord's command Moses and Aaron recorded by their clans, all the males from the age of 1 month up came to 22,000. So the Lord said to Moses, record every firstborn male of the Israelite people from the age of 1 month up and make a list of their names, and take the Levites for me, the Lord, in place of every firstborn among the Israelite people, and the cattle of the Levites in place of every firstborn among the cattle of the Israelites. So Moses recorded all the firstborn among the Israelites as the Lord had commanded him, and all the firstborn males, as listed by name, recorded from the age of 1 month up, came to 22,273. So they came up 273 short. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the Levites in place of all the firstborn among the Israelite people, and the cattle of the Levites in place of the cattle, and the Levites should be mine, the Lord's. And as the redemption price for the 273 Israelite firstborn over and above the number of Levites, take 5 shekels per head, take this by the sanctuary weight, 20 gerahs to the shekel, and give the money to Aaron and his sons as the redemption price for those who are in excess. So Moses took the redemption money from among them over and above the ones redeemed by the Levites. He took the money from the firstborn of the Israelites, 1,365 sanctuary shekels. And Moses gave the redemption money to Aaron and his sons at the Lord's bidding, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then this was for the maintenance. This was for the provision. This was for the provision of the Levites. This was for them to acquire goods and materials, because in 40 years, all right, you had things that had to be done. You had provisions. And so all this had to be done. Hi. All right, chapter 4. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, got a question? Yes, Kelly.
I'm really sorry, but I'm confused on this section. I'm not getting where they counted. I understand they counted the firstborn of the Levites and they counted the firstborn of the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not following then. There was 273 more of the Israelites.
Mm-hmm. Two different census were taken of the Levites. Moses
Right.
first counted every male 1 month and older to make sure there were enough Levites to substitute for all the firstborn in Israel.
There's enough Levites.
That make sense?
Okay, so they wanted to make sure there was enough Levites to substitute for the
Right,
the
because he was
number.
taking the Levites as his own,
Okay.
as the compensation for the firstborn.
Okay,
Okay, so he counted all the firstborn, all right, and all the firstborn was 22,273, but there were only 22,000 Levites.
okay, so he was 273 short.
Remember, he took all the Israelites. The entire nation of Israel was a kingdom of priests before God. You remember that? He took them to be himself. He called them to be set apart. When we take a look at this concept of a priesthood, what does it mean to be set apart? Right? Set apart for the work of God. You're set apart. Okay? We read that we've been called into a royal priesthood, and we've talked about that many, many times. From a bloodline perspective, you cannot be a royal priest. Cannot. Not possible. Genealogy, there is no bloodline which is the combination of Judah and Levi. Doesn't exist. Doesn't happen. A father is a Judite, the mother is a Levite, the child's a Judite. The father is a Levite, the mother is a Judite, the child is a Levite. The bloodline is determined by the father even to this day. Therefore, how can you be a Judah Levite? How can you be a Melech Zadok, a Melchizedek? How could you be that? How could you be in the line of a royal priesthood? You can't, unless God does it. Unless you're set apart by the Lord and counted among Israel. Why do you have to be grafted in? In order to be counted among Israel, you must be grafted into it, or you can't be counted among Israel. All right? Therefore, this grafting in of both me as a natural branch and you who are Jewish as a natural branch and those who are not Jewish grafted in as a wild branch, what are you grafted into? To be counted among the priests of Israel. You must be grafted in to be a part of Israel. In order to be a priest, you must be a part of Israel. You must be part of God's firstborn, His chosen ones, His anointed ones. Where does that come from? He considered all of Israel a kingdom of priests. And so the firstborn had to be redeemed. And so all of Israel, the firstborn of Israel, 22,273, firstborn of Israel, only 22,000 Levites. So what do you do about the other 273? $5 apiece. All right? $5. No, Kelly, $5. You owe me $5. Oh, Abraham, $5.
When
All
you
right,
add,
so are we clear about this redemption?
well, when we add up the numbers, 7,500, 8,600, and 6,200, they come a little bit over 22,000. How does that work? I mean, does that, am I adding wrong?
Do the math for me.
Well, what'd she say?
I'm sorry? It's 200 over?
200 or 300 over by my addition. But
All right, I know there's an answer to that. It's just escaping me. Is it Aaron and his sons? Is it who's not, somebody's not counted? Hold on, I'll look for it.
okay. I thought that must be the answer, but I just couldn't make those numbers reconcile.
Let's see. Hold on a second. I don't see in my notes, but I do know that there's an answer of who wasn't counted. I don't have that answer right now, but I'll get you that answer. Never counted it up, just took the word for it. All right. Sally?
There's a footnote that in the Septuagint, it has 8,300, and that would make the math correct.
Okay. I can't hear you, Sarah. Yes, Don.
Rabbi, in Dakes it says, the contradiction disappears when we remember that 300 males from the camps of Gershon, Kohath, and Merari served as priests and leaders with Moses and Aaron. I don't know,
I'm not sure what that means.
It not only stated how many of the 300 came from one of these three camps or the other, we know only from this verse that the number of Levites apart from the priests and leaders was 22,000.
Okay. All right. And I don't see any note in here on mine, but I tend not to look at the notes. I don't. I have them all here, but I just don't look at them. All right. Anybody got questions? Other questions?
I've got a quick question about the future.
Okay. Hold the mic up to your mouth.
The new tabernacle, when it's built, will it also be served by Levites?
Won't be a new tabernacle, it'll be a new temple.
Temple.
Okay, yeah, the temple will always be 24,000 are the appointed priests. Remember in the division that David gave for 24 groups of 1,000. That's the introduction we have into the assignment of the temple responsibilities. 24 groups of 1,000. They drew lots for the course of the year for the various assignments. We know that story happens to be the exact way it was in the second temple because we know that Zechariah was performing his duties in the temple. He drew lots, and it was his time in his group of the 24 1,000. And so that same order, God's not one who changes order, changes patterns. And so that same pattern, we understand the division of the work and the division of the labor within and the assignments. And so within each one of the 24 groups of 1,000, there was a drawing of lots to see who would get the incense, who would do the table of showbread, who would trim the wicks, and those kind of things. For the future temple, for the past and future. It was the same in the first temple, the same in the second temple. It'll be the same in the third temple, and it'll be the same in the fourth temple. I get anybody's attention? It'll be the same in the fourth temple. There is no temple there. Remember, he said, and then I saw no heaven and no earth. I saw no temple. Okay, fourth temple. Oh, you're all excited about the third temple. Well, there has to be a third temple before there's a fourth temple. What happens in the third temple? Desecrated, isn't it? Okay, just like the first temple was desecrated with the same kind of the abomination. All right, so what has to happen? It has to be rebuilt, doesn't it? Okay, then, after the fourth temple, then I saw no temple, and I saw no heaven and earth, and the new Jerusalem had come down. Then there was no light, there was no sun, there was no moon, because the light was so great. And so you have to read it carefully, read it carefully, because then there's no need for sacrifice, there's no system. But for that 1,000 years, there's got to be a sacrificial system. There's got to be the guilt offering. There's got to be the fellowship offering. There still has to be that, according to Ezekiel. All right, question in the back, anybody? Going once, going twice. Any of our Bible scholars? Questions? Having a good time? Having fun? Book of Numbers, pretty exciting, isn't it? Betty Heron.
I just became curious because we've got Moses and Aaron and the Levites and Aaron's sons. Maybe this question was answered in Exodus and I missed it, but why are Moses' sons not included in anything?
Why are Moses' sons not included in what? Two of his
You
sons
don't ever,
died.
I
and
don't
had-
ever hear of him. No, I'm talking about the Moses' sons. Did they go back to with their mother to Midian, or what happened to Moses'
Well,
sons?
they died in the desert. So
They did? Okay. I don't remember that. Okay. Yeah, I know, but I mean here, in this, they don't say anything, they don't mention Moses' sons here at all, and they had no place.
Oh, Moses' sons? Well,
Yeah, Moses' sons. You
Oh,
remember
yeah, I don't, the boys, I don't know, Moses and Sons, I guess they have a piano store somewhere. I don't really. Moses' sons.
He had two sons that his wife brought with him when he was coming back to Egypt
Right.
from the desert, and
Remember their names?
no, I don't remember that.
Bob and Phil, I think. No.
I just assumed they went back with their mother to their his father-in-law, but I've never heard anything about it.
I never did either. I hadn't really thought about Moses' sons. But Betty, but
Wait a second, this sounds like a good study for her to do to
it
bring
does
to
sound
us
like a
next
great
week.
study, Betty.
So I'm thinking,
What are you doing?
yeah.
What are you doing tomorrow? All right, you're going to be looking that up. All right, well, we're going to look forward to that report next week. All right, anybody else have a question that they can't answer that they want to look up?
And that's how it's done.
It's a very Jewish and a very biblical thing to do. All right, we got one up here. Lynn, hold on one second. Wait for the microphone. Got to wait for the microphone.
I know in Revelations it says that, Jesus will come from the east and he will come back. When he comes to earth, he said, first he shall raise the dead and then the living, and we shall meet him in the sky. Then I'm wondering, I guess my big question is, what are they going to set up? Will Armageddon start at that point?
This isn't a Revelation study. This is a Book of Numbers study. So I'll
I'm
answer
just
your Book of Revelation study question, but this is a Book of Numbers study. We've got to stay with the material. There's tens of thousands of questions, but we've got to stick with the Book of Numbers. So if it's relevant to the Book of Numbers, I'll be happy to talk about it. Okay? Okay. Come to the prophecy in the news. We talk about all this stuff at 11:30 on Tuesdays about prophecy and end times. But I got to stick to the material. Not that you're not a good question, but I got to stick to the material. Got to stay on track. All right. Other questions about the Book of Numbers? All right. All right. Let's get into chapter 4. All right. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take a separate census of the Kohathites among the Levites by the clans of their ancestral houses from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service to perform tasks for the tent of meeting. This is the responsibility of the Kohathites in the tent of meeting, the most sacred objects." So, why this age? We've got to be able to see this picture now. If I'm 1 month old, I'm not able to do any service in the tabernacle, am I? Right? And of what age will I be able to do service? At age 20, we know that we have some responsibilities because we have the ability to bear arms and to be positioned. But now we're in the Levitical line. So what am I going to do? All right? We're looking at age 25, all right, really age 30 years and up to age 50, who are subject to service to perform tasks. So there must be a period of apprenticeship. Right? These are not tasks that you just wake up and you know. These are things that you have to be trained to do. We know that when they were in Egypt, they were trained to do different things. Not just to make bricks, but we know that there were skilled artisans, skilled craftsmen in many different areas. They were skilled in weaving, in sewing, in woodwork, in all kinds of different skills in the production of the building of the tabernacle. Right? So now we have to pass that on. There has to be a period of apprenticeship. There has to be a period of training. And so we see this being formulated as we assign people of certain ages. And ages were important. Age of accountability, age of responsibility. There was also retirement ages. All right, already prepared when you no longer had to serve. You served long enough in this particular area. You weren't ready for service, you needed to be trained. Now you were too old for service, or you were assigned in different ways. Don't we find that from a maturity level, from a experience level within life itself? And so we have that pattern being established here. This is the responsibility of the Kohathites in the tent of meeting, the most sacred object. At the breaking of camp, Aaron and his sons shall go in and take down the screening curtain and cover the ark of the pact with it. Nothing gets wasted, so you're not just boxing it up, you're using it to cover. They shall lay a covering of dolphin skin over it and spread a cloth of pure blue on top, and they shall put its poles in place. Over the table of display they shall spread a blue cloth. They shall place upon it bowls, the ladles, the jars, the libation jugs, and the regular bread shall rest upon it. They shall spread over these a crimson cloth, which they shall cover with a covering of dolphin skin, and they shall put the poles in place. Then they shall take a blue cloth and cover the lampstand for lighting, with its lamps, its tongs, and its fire pans, as well as all the oil vessels that are used in its service. They shall put it and all its furnishings into a covering of dolphin skin, which they shall then place on a carrying frame. Next, are we beginning to see an order? God says, I want this done first, and this is how I want it done. Now, for those of you that say, oh, well, I can do it any way I want to do it. Why would God give us an order if He wanted it done differently? There must be some reason for this. Well, we'll begin to see the reason. As we overlay things, it secures things. As they move along, they're not going to fall and break. Remember, things get desecrated. How many of you have ever dropped something that was precious to you? Okay? Oh, you can send it out for repair, but is it ever the same? How many of you have broken something, got it fixed, and still look for the break? I know I do. Okay? How many of you have taken a beautiful cup, a silver cup, and dropped it or dented it? It's never the same, is it? It's never the same. Well, these things are sacred to God. Sacred to God. And so He wants them handled a particular way. If you handle them your way, is that necessarily God's way? That's man's way. And so God wants us to do it His way, because that's where the blessing lies, in doing it His way. Yes?
I've been reading in Numbers, and I've read a couple of different versions, Bible versions. The New King James Version I have with me today, it says badger skins as opposed to dolphin skins. And I was thinking about that the other day when I had seen found the difference in the two words, and I'm thinking, they're in the desert. Where are they getting dolphin skins to do all of this with? They weren't close to an ocean. Well, I guess they came through the Red Sea, though, didn't they? I just thought of that. Anyway, two different words, names for the skins of the coverings, that's all.
Absolutely. Miss Laura, do you have an answer for him?
Yes. In Hebrew, the word is tachash, and it means a clean animal with fur.
A clean animal with fur. All right. Is a badger a clean animal?
No.
No.
But a dolphin doesn't have fur.
That's right.
Isn't that interesting?
Antelope? Up here.
Yes.
Rabbi, can't we just get the Masoretic text and go from that, please? My version says goat skin. There are a lot of critters in the desert.
Isn't it interesting?
I think I've got the same thing, but mine says goat skins.
Yours says goat skin?
Yes.
Okay, the Jewish Publication Society Tanakh translation says dolphin. Now, I've always heard dolphin. Okay, all my life, I've never heard goat skin. Okay? Dolphin, porpoise, the same thing. Flipper, I always thought of Flipper. Okay? I always thought of Flipper and his little buddy, the little blonde-headed kid. I did. That was always the picture. I mean, I'd sit there in Hebrew class, and they'd talk about this, and they'd say it was covered, and I'd say, Flipper? But then every deer was Bambi, so what can you do? You just make your associations.
Rabbi, this goes back to what you were saying earlier about the service. I just had a commentary and I'd be interested to see what Laura saw about that. But the word service in verse 3, it says it's the same Hebrew word that was used for military service in verse 1 and 3, suggesting that the work of the Levites for the Lord was as carefully organized as a militia, just as you've
Correct.
been stating.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You know, why do we call what you go into the service, right? Isn't that a common expression? You know, what do you do for a living? I'm in the service, right? You know, we use that. Yes?
Rabbi, I know we've gone over this before, but can you remind me what showbread, like what that is exactly?
Matzah.
But like, why is it called showbread and what was the purpose? I know it was one.
All right. Laura,
It's the bread of presence.
bread of the presence.
Lechem panim. Lechem?
Hold it to
panim.
your mouth.
Lechem panim. The bread of
Lechem,
presence.
it's the face. Panim is the face. Lechem is bread. All right, it's the bread of God's presence. The table of showbread, we begin to see lots and lots of symbolism, beginning with the making of the bread, the breaking of the bread, the consecration of the bread, and all of this evolved to where Yeshua talks about being the bread of life. And so that's the lechem l'chaim. Right? So in order to have the sum total of the bread of affliction, the bread of life, the bread of his presence, all these things to understand that this symbol up here is so profound in God's economy that you see it as a sacred vessel. You see the libation, right, as sacred. And so this blessing over the fruit of the vine, this blessing over the bread that comes from out of the earth is so profound in God's economy. All right, we've hit 11:55. We're going to close in a word of prayer. Please pray for Miss Laura and I.